Ben Cherington was asked by DK Pittsburgh Sports a few weeks ago, will the hitting coach that you hire continue to apply a passive approach to his instruction? To which the GM responded with a very long and very nothing answer. So, the new hitting coach was asked by DK Pittsburgh Sports yesterday, now that he's here, if in fact he will also espouse a passive approach to hitting. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Matt Hague, former minor leaguer in the Pirates system, going back about 10 years, also had, I don't know if you want to call it a cup of coffee in Pittsburgh. He was up for the equivalent of a little less than half a season. By all accounts, both back then when I covered him and since then, really good dude, well-liked, respected for his, well, first and foremost for his hitting. Obviously, he didn't stick in the majors, but, you know, there's hitting in the minors too, and he was able to do that. But also for his professionalism. So I don't want to be the wet blanket before he even starts, and I'll just say that, you know, the mind is wide open. Let's see how he does, and as I've been stressing throughout this process, let's see how independent he is, because the sense that I continue to get is that he'll need to be independent in order to be effective. Why? Because Cherington's ideas regarding hitting are, well, they're just about as bad as the results themselves. He has a vision that every hitter in existence should be peak Joey Votto, which sounds great if you're actually peak Joey Votto. If you're not, and that one size doesn't fit all, then you're not going to be someone who can consistently, much less maniacally, work walks. And from there, if you aren't that, what you're going to do is strike out a lot. You're going to strike out looking a lot. You'll occasionally run into one, but ultimately, the player that we're describing here is Jack Suwinski. That's what you're going to be. You're going to be Jack. You're going to be Jack for better. You're going to be Jack for worse. So yes, again, Jose Negron, our reporter at DK Pittsburgh Sports, posed essentially the same question on the conference call that Hague had with local reporters yesterday. In essence, are you going to continue the practice of hitters being passive in the box?
So I think it's finding the right situations on when to bring out certain styles. I think as a team we have extremely athletic guys, extremely athletic and extremely physical. So with that, understanding the situations to where we can be more balanced or can be more aggressive. Certain pitch profiles to where we are taking our controlling the zone, not necessarily passiveness, but more of kind of controlled aggression through certain parts of the zone and at bats. But I think just being able to be extremely adjustable, and because of the personnel we have, with the athleticism and the physicality, being able to mold those together to where it's more balanced. And I think putting more emphasis on adjustability, but also understanding the situations where it's time to do a little more damage or take those chances up front, because they're always trying to assess risk versus reward. And I think as long as there's a lot of context and identification, like I was talking about earlier, and what goes into that, providing guidance and roadmaps for them, we can kind of put those pieces together to understand those situations that occur. Because it can be very, I'm just kind of getting on those situations to be able to help them create their plans through objectives, through personal experience, understanding their past experience as well, kind of blending all those together for a really well thought out type of plan towards them.
Now here again, like Cherington, there's a lot there, and at the same time, there's nothing there. There's not really an answer. There was a whole lot of dodge. There was the standard reluctance to even apply the term passive. Why? Because passive just sounds bad, even if it's accurate. And there was a ton about being selective, about making that decision. And I get that. There's not a hitting coach anywhere in 2024 who would see it radically differently than that. But there's being selective, and then there's just standing there. And then there's just running up pitch counts. And then there's, I hate to keep picking on him because I really like him, but then there's Jack. And that's what you get. That's part of the reason, a big part of the reason, I've believed for a while now, that the Pirates haven't developed any hitters internally in forever. Obligatory reminder here. Brian Reynolds came from the Giants system. O'Neal Cruz came from the Dodgers system. Whereas the ones internally, even a 1-1, a number 1 overall pick in the draft in Henry Davis, they fall apart either before or once they get to the majors. The objective of a hitter is contained within the actual job title. It's to hit. When you take that away from the hitter, you take away the natural fluidity and confidence that's required for someone to do that thing, that exact act. That is to hit the ball. Unless, to repeat, they're Joey Votto and they can just turn it on and off like a spigot. This thing does not work. This mindset does not work. When Nick Gonzalez, who was internally acquired, internally developed, came up to the majors and hit that same wall that others have hit, went back to the minors, came back for the 2024 season after coming up with some realizations, with some things he felt he could improve upon. I asked him about those only all year long, including on the final road trip that I'd covered, and he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to get into any kind of detail. Well, gee, wonder why. Because you saw Gonzalez go back to being the kind of hitter that he was in college and for the better part of his minor league career. You know what he did that was so nuts? He swung the bat. When we come back, J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragechek.org. That's gunstoragechek.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Kevin, and it's actually really funny. He says, can't anybody in this organization answer with a simple, short, 1-paragraph answer? Now, Kevin's responding to the transcript that we put on DK Pittsburgh Sports of pretty much everything that Matt Hague said in his conference call yesterday. And like the answer that you heard regarding the continued passive approach, yeah, they were long. And they also sounded a lot like the general manager. Now, I don't want to keep pounding this theme that everyone sounds like the general manager, but Ben Cherington is the leader of baseball operations. And that's how he sounds. And I don't know if this applies to where you work or in some other walk of life, but I know that when I'm talking to people over at the Steelers facility, they will sound a lot like Mike Tomlin. When I'm talking to people in the Penguins world, they'll sound a lot, and I mean a lot, like Mike Sullivan. So this isn't exactly out of the ordinary, and I'd apply that in the double when you're talking about someone who just got the job of his dreams. That said, and I think this is what you were getting at, Kevin, because I saw a few other people in our comments section on the website pointing this out. What you hope is that the athlete gets a much clearer, much simpler set of messaging than that. A hitting coach should never be judged by their words or how they speak or anything else, whether they're incredibly well-spoken or whether they're sounding like they blew off school after the 4th grade, or whether they're just really wordy and really all over the place. Because what they say to us doesn't matter. What they say to the athletes matters. There's a lot that goes into hitting. Andrew McCutcheon and I had a talk, this was in Cleveland near the end of the season, about how much harder hitting's become than when he came into the majors. And he got into detail, and some of it, I'm not going to lie to you, I'd never heard or even thought about before, and it made hitting sound kind of scary. He said it's never been harder. Never been harder. So there is a lot there. There's a lot to understand. There's a lot to teach. And then from there, there's a lot to execute. Here's wishing Hague nothing but the best. And yet again, here's wishing that if and when push comes to shove and he has to start telling people, you better swing the bat, that he can do so with reasonable autonomy. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. We'll do another one of these on Monday. And a couple of reminders here. If you happen to be in downtown Pittsburgh tomorrow for Light Up Night, stop by and say hello. We have our headquarters and shop at 224 5th Avenue. We're open from noon until, we're going to stay open on Light Up Night. We always do that. And speaking of downtown on the weekend, there will be the 3rd of those fan protests Sunday beginning at noon on the steps of the City County building on Grant Street. Appreciate everybody who checks out this show.